Thanks for tuning in to the Mission Matters podcast, where we feature successful, mission-driven leaders committed to creating a positive change in the world. Our mission with this channel is to inspire other leaders by providing industry insights, new ideas, and inspiring stories from the pros.
All right, I'm Paul Fife, host of this show where I talk with leaders heading up mission-focused organizations, leading from the heart, inspiring others, and making a difference in our communities, as always. This episode is brought to you by Gregory Media, affectionately known as PGM, a certified B Corporation. To learn more about what PGM does or what a certified B Corporation is, go to paulgregorymedia.com. I have with me Kim White. Thanks for joining us, Kim.
Hey, Paul. How are you?
Great. I really appreciate you being on our show today. I just want to give a quick intro about you. Kim White embodies what it means to be a successful, empowering, and influential leader. And as a fellow Rotarian, I know firsthand, under her leadership as president, I've seen firsthand how she passionately gives back to her community and embodies I guess it's a motto, service above self. She has led the Career and Networking Center, which is really what we're going to talk about today a little bit, to new heights as its executive director, and has taken on leadership roles in community organizations such as I got to take a breath here. The Naperville Neighbors United, Pointe Autism Foundation, and the Indian Prairie Educational Foundation. Not to mention, another breath here, the chairperson of DEI, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for the Naperville Area Chamber of Commerce right here in our own backyard. So welcome, Kim, once again. You have a very impressive resume.
My gosh. Thank you, Paul. I really appreciate, when people share things like that, it's like, oh, is that me? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, organizations that I'm proud to be a part of, love to give back. And now that, my kids are grown, I can do more. So excited to be a part of those groups.
Yes, indeed. And we were talking a little bit before we started recording. I've met quite a few directors or executive directors for nonprofits over the years, 18 plus years. And I feel like I've kind of gotten to know them at the early part of their career, their journey, just beginning. Whereas you were a little different, right? I've met you probably when I first joined Rotary, probably.
Yeah.
And that was 7 or 8 years ago. But I feel like there's so much more that I don't know about you, which is why I'm kind of excited about this podcast, because I'm going to learn some things today. And let's just start. We can say this, that you've been with the Career and Networking Center for going on almost 20 years. You started in 2005, correct?
I did. Yeah. That's really, unheard of, I think, almost nowadays to be in a job, if you will, for that long. Doing the work that I do, I see our clients are changing jobs every 2 or 3 years, some because they want to do it and others sometimes are forced to. So yeah, I never thought when I started at the Career Center I would be there this long. Started out part-time, but really, love the work that I do around helping people in careers. And 5 years into it, they named me the executive director. And so for the past 15 years, almost 15 years now, I've been the executive director. So
since 2010, great. So now this is the part I'm interested in, is what led you to this journey in doing career transitions and networking. And you had this great story about, your husband and that new life.
Yeah. I feel like I always talk about my husband, but quite frankly, we live this life of, serving our country. He as a person in the military. So I think, like many people, I thought I grow up and I'd be, in corporate America doing something. And that was always my, my thought and my focus. And then, I met my husband in high school, and he went to West Point and still didn't think he was going to do a career in the Army, but he decided he really loved it. And, in the military, it's really difficult to have that kind of corporate job, right? You are more, those jobs that, really feed into moving around a lot. It would be like a teacher or a nurse, very, great careers, but, I wasn't interested in either of those. Although right now, I think if I could go back and change, I'd probably be a teacher. But my mom was a nurse, love nurses. But I just, again, I always thought I'd be corporate America. So for me, we started moving around, and I realized that that was not going to be my kind of career journey. And so I started volunteering and helping people with their career journey. I wanted to continue to, while didn't follow my initial passion, I wanted to help others follow their passion and help them along the way. So started, learning how to do resumes and just providing career conversations, exploration conversations with people, and trying to help them navigate what it is that they wanted to do, and started working with soldiers. There was a time when the military actually went through a drawdown, and there were a lot of soldiers that were transitioning out of the military. So I started working with soldiers and helping them with their resumes, and, how do you navigate or talk about, going to war and put that on a resume, right? So we talk about skills and things of that nature. So it just became a passion of mine, and it was a natural transition to move into this role when we moved to Naperville in 2005.
All right, just a quick joke here. It feels like you would be great in marketing, because you said
I talk too much, probably.
how do you transition, like, let's talk about war, and then I could just see your marketing mind like handles conflict well.
Yeah. Right.
It's like a spin,
Yeah. It's interesting because when they're talking, right, they're talking about, the bad things that happen in war, right? The things
Sure.
I'm like, well, we're not going to put that on your resume. We're going to talk about, transitions, and how do
I have to
you
spin this just a little bit.
Yeah.
Hence the marketing slant.
Yeah.
So you were helping shoulders transition out of the military, which is a great segue into helping the rest of the, civilian population, who at the time, I guess we're talking about probably what, pre-2005, right?
Yeah. Pre-2005. And, it was great. I mean, it was something I really loved to do. I think it's being in that space anyway, in the military space, they become your family. So you're just, it's all about helping, whether it's a family member or their spouse or their kids. I mean, that's just what you do. And so it was just natural to do that. And then once we, moved here, and my oldest son at the time was starting high school, I then took on a passion of working with young people, and my kids, and I actually co-authored a book around adulting, transitioning from navigating from campus to career, and helping them in that space. I think I did a pretty good job with my kids, although they would probably say I was, Mom, you don't know anything, but actually I
Always.
do know a little.
Yeah.
So, but I've helped them navigate into in their own successful careers, and so it's been great. Yeah.
So I have to wonder if all of this preparation, all of this experience through the military, through transitioning to civilian life, to civilians transitioning from one job to another, 2007 happens.
Mm-hmm.
And that has to make a huge impact on your services, and vice versa, I would think. Tell us a little bit about that time.
Yeah, it was interesting because we were already seeing a number of clients. We have Joy McGuire Dooley. I don't know if you're familiar with who she is, but she was instrumental in starting Job Club, which is a networking group. She was invited to Washington, D.C., Department of Labor, to actually speak about this Job Club that she started in, Lisle, Illinois, right? And so so it was already a thing, and we had a number of folks who were utilizing our services specifically around Job Club, and just an opportunity to network with your peers and share out contacts, and help people, connect with other people in order to get their job. So what we found, and we were seeing probably 50 people every week at our weekly Job Club. So what we found that happened in 2007, 2008 is that it grew to the point that we had to open a second Job Club. So we were, shoulder to shoulder at our Job Club. We saw it grow to about 100 people. So we started a second one, and we were seeing probably another 70 people in that one. And that was just our networking group that was meeting weekly. And, I will say, looking back now, it kind of prepped us for what was to come in 2020, that we didn't know what was out there. But in terms of being flexible and adaptable, and changing up and being ready to um, change up what we were doing in a short span of time to make sure that we can accommodate those who were coming to our center for our services.
Wow. Well, that's pretty impressive with all those people. And you had two going on every week.
Every single week. Yeah, every Wednesday, job club. 2 hours.
And what year was that? Was that around the 2007,
Yeah, it
2008?
was 2007, 2008, 2009. Yeah, it was, pretty rough time back then.
Pretty rough time, but also sounds like a pretty significant impact for that
Yeah,
local community.
for sure, for sure. Yeah. And, we were seeing so many people from, all over Chicagoland, mostly in the western suburbs, but people would drive in from the city, which we all know what that's like, that traffic. So,
Yeah.
so it tells you a lot about the program. I mean, it was well received, and we still today, we still have job club, and we're still seeing clients from all over, just more, we do it more so remotely now, which is great because we can remove barriers to help people in many ways.
Right. Well, to back up just a little bit, and I'm interested in the career journey within the confines of CNC. So you started out, you became the executive director. You were doing, I guess what you were doing was more one-on-ones, right?
Right, right. Yeah. So when the center first started, it was really focused on one-to-one coaching with volunteer individuals in our community who gave of their time to help job seekers, and started in 1996. And so when I started in 2005, we were still doing that. And then in 2010, when I became the executive director, I wanted to add obviously some more services. And so I looked at, if we're doing these one-to-ones and resume writing and mock interviewing and things of that nature, why not open those up to workshops and do some of the same, topics, but let's focus it more on workshops. And so we started doing workshops, and we were seeing, 40, 50 people showing up in person for our workshops that we were doing. Um, really taking a focus on, covering kind of a holistic approach to it. So not just focusing on the hard skills, but also the soft skills, and what else are people going through when they've lost their job. So it's bringing somebody to talk about, the emotional well-being. How are you handling this? Making sure people are in a good space, good headspace as well. Because losing a job, let's face it, it's tough. It's your identity. It's who you are. It's like being, a parent. Your kids become like who you are, and then kind of lose yourself in that. But when you lost your job, like that's everything. And so I'm really trying to help people navigate that. So just really taking that holistic approach. When you lose your job, I need somebody to talk to you about finances. Do I tap into my 401k or not? What do I need to do? So we brought in different folks to provide different workshops so that we can kind of cover the gamut when people have lost their job.
Mm. And so there's definitely a progression going from the one-on-ones to the job networking events to, and there's several other services that you have too. Can you go walk us through some of those?
Yeah, so we offer a lot of different things. We offer services for employers. While we're not a placement agency, we have job seekers. We have folks looking for jobs. So it's important for us to have those relationships with employers. So we have over the years built kind of a portfolio of employers that we can tap into if someone is looking for, excuse me, a specific job or in a specific industry. We can help navigate those conversations between a potential employer and a potential employee. And so providing those types of services to employers is really important. I think we talked a little bit earlier about just even the partnerships that we have with our nonprofits, and being able to provide those referrals for our clients.
Sure. No
Typically,
nonprofit is an island unto themselves, right?
Right, right. And this is what I love about this community. I think I've often said this, if you are in a place where you need assistance or you need help in most any way you can think of, Naperville in the western suburbs is a really good place to be from because there is a nonprofit or an organization out there that can help in so many different ways. And I love that we all work together to partner. And so if someone comes to us, we ask the questions, what else do you need? We ask the question, what else do you need? And we make sure to share if you find yourselves in need of food. There's many agencies that, we can connect you with and help you to, get help in that way. Or, we see different numbers go up when you're in this space and you've lost your job. And so we reach out to different agencies and we have those referrals that we can, send people off to.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly a huge amount of I'm not even sure what the word is, and maybe this is me and my age, but that collaboration maybe is, for lack
Yeah,
of a better term,
yeah,
between a lot of the agencies because they have their lanes,
yeah.
and there may be some overlap, but there's a lot of partnerships going on as I'm finding out.
Yeah, and there is some overlap, especially in the space that we do, because a lot of the agencies, have some sort of employment piece to what they do, which makes sense. You don't want your clients that may already have some significant barriers to now figure out, now I got to get to this place in order to help me with my job. So they have, some employment things that they do, but that's all that we do for the most part. And so,
Mhm.
we're not trying to stock a food pantry because why would we do that? We have great organizations that do that. And so if you need a more involved job search process, we're that organization that does that. And so agencies know that and they'll reach out to us and say, hey, I have client A that needs this. He or she is in this industry, this level. Is it okay if we send them over to you? And then we take those
Yeah.
clients on. Yeah.
Well, I think we're getting a sense of what CNC means to the beneficiaries that you help. What I'd like to ask you is, how has your life changed? What does CNC mean to you, and what impact has it made on your life personally?
Yeah. So Paul, I think right now you're trying to make me cry.
No.
So, you know, I will tell you, I go back to where I started with, thinking I was going to take this one career path and how that totally changed. And I think things happen for a reason. And, I think most nonprofit directors would tell you that, you don't get into this work because of, the money for sure, right? You get into this work because you love the impact you have on other people. And you love, that note that you may get at the end of the day, not necessarily for you, but for one of the volunteers and how one volunteer helped someone land their next success. And you read these letters and it can't help but warm your heart. And you just know, like, I'm in the right place. This is where I'm supposed to be. Because there's nothing that makes me happier than to know that a client has landed their job. They're able to provide for their family. Um, and they're able to feel good about what they, when they wake up every morning and what they do every day. And so, as I tear up here, there's no better feeling than that, right? So there's no
It's got the
regret.
feels.
Yeah. There's no regret.
Yeah, which is why a lot of nonprofit directors and staff do what they do, right? Because
Yeah.
it appears to be very fulfilling
Yeah.
from
I
the
think
outside.
back to one of our clients. There's several clients that, I will never ever forget. And I think back to this one client who um very successful, high level individual who came to the center, and I could tell he was a little apprehensive. And at one point he knocked on the door and asked if he could speak with me. He had probably been into the center maybe 4 or 5 times at that point. And I said, sure. He comes in and, he closes the door behind him, which I normally don't allow that unless I choose to close the door, right? So it was kind of caught me off guard a little bit. But he closed the door behind me and he comes and sits down in front of my desk and he immediately starts to cry. And I kind of let him have his moment. And then he said to me, I really need help. He said, I've been out of work for a while. My company laid me off. I think it was about 8 months at that point. He thought he was going to immediately just walk into a job and days turn into weeks, turn into months. And
Mhm.
he really needed help. And I said, well, that's what we're here for. And he spoke about, he used to give a monthly donation to several nonprofits, including, Loaves and Fishes. I specifically remember him speaking about that organization. And now he found himself on the side of where he needed to reach out to Loaves and Fishes,
Mhm.
um, and what that felt like for him. And I said, so here's what you need to know. It's great that you've been able to bless, bless so many people in your life, and you've been able to do, donate and do all of those things. There comes a time when we all may need something. And so there is no judgment anywhere in any of these organizations. No one is judging. You go, you walk yourself into Loaves and Fishes and you get what you need. And one day you will be back there doing your volunteering and donating and doing the things that you were doing before at Loaves and Fishes, because he used to volunteer there. Um, and so, I see him around. I still see this person around. And this was probably 10, 12, maybe 10 years ago.
Wow.
And but I still see him. There's no judgment. We always make eye contact. Sometimes we give each other a hug. But yeah, that's what
Great
it's all
story.
about.
Great
Yeah.
story. Before we wrap up, I'm going to go tangential, and that's probably not even a word. I just made it up, I think.
It's a
But
word.
it sounded like it might be a word.
Yeah, it's a word.
Because this is where I met you, which is Rotary, and you were the president of Rotary not too long ago, a year ago. So I'd love to just tap your brain just a little bit and understand, not understand. I'd like to get your take on your experience in being president of Rotary. I've heard many presidents talk about their experience. It's grueling. I know it is. And it's demanding of your time for sure. There's a lot of politics. We all know all that. I think
Yeah.
being a leader in any organization, you have that. But I'd love to know what being president of Rotary for that year meant to you.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks for that question. Obviously I didn't know that was coming, but I would say, you know, it was historic, which I didn't know. So I was the first Black president of our club.
Mm,
And so there was that aspect of it. And I think obviously having been the chairperson of the DEI committee for the chamber, I'm a huge proponent of DEI. I think it's just critically important. And DEI is not about black and white. It's not, it's about having diverse thought at the table, no matter who you are, what you look like, who you love, what your religion, and all of that. So I'm a huge, proponent of that. And so to your point, I had heard other presidents talk about how grueling it is to be president. And I did not immediately say yes. It actually took me about 3 weeks before I committed to taking on the role, because it's a 4-year role. You become nominee, then you become elect, and then you become president, and then you're past president. So you're committing for 4 years. And I always talk to my husband and my kids about, things and get their input. And my husband was probably more like, no, you're
yeah.
involved in too much, don't do it. My kids were like, after a while, they said, Mom, you can make a difference. You can bring, you're always talking about different, thoughts and having a seat at the table. This is an opportunity. So I will say what I loved about my time during Rotary is that I was able to make a difference And it also helped that our national president, although I didn't know this, her year, the same year it was my focus, or the same year I was president, she became the first woman president of Rotary. Her focus was on DEI. So we had these, trailblazing moments with the same focus, although neither of us, I clearly didn't know what she was choosing before I made my decision. And so I saw the work that she was doing around DEI at the same time that I was doing it in our club, and bringing awareness to organizations that our club really weren't aware of, because we were always used to giving to the same organizations. But I said, hey, there's other nonprofits out there that really could use, benefit from the work that we do. And so I was happy in that way that I could bring awareness to a number of other agencies in our community that Rotary probably would not have known about or donated, help to, give money to without me having
Right.
a seat at that table.
So making your mark
Yeah.
and introducing to new channels,
Yeah.
for sure.
I'm extremely, extremely proud of that. So,
Nice. Well, I feel like I love this conversation. I feel like I've learned so much about you than I have in any lunch or greeting at Rotary. So thank you for imparting your thoughts and your wisdom and your experience, especially in this show. So I would ask you the same thing. Any parting thoughts for our listeners?
yeah, I think first of all, Paul, I just gotta, give a shout out to you, right? You have, to your point earlier, we met 7 or 8 years ago. And I always recognize people when they come in for different things to try to remember names. So you're this tall guy, and I got to get to know that guy, see what he's all about. And you are one of the most humble people that I know. You are obviously very successful, but you wouldn't know that because you don't really put that out there and flaunt that. But so many people speak so highly of you.
I've got them all fooled.
And really around the work you do in supporting and elevating others, especially nonprofits in our community. So I have to thank you for that. When, marketing budgets are pretty slim for nonprofits. And so, we don't have to pay you. You just have to elevate us. So thank you for that. And thank you for all the work that you do as well. And, in this day and age and time, my parting words are just, I always tell people, you never know what anyone else is going through. It's just important to, leave all that horrible rhetoric behind and just be kind and nice and do what you can to help others, because you never know what people are going through. So
Love that. Don't be so quick to judge, because you never know what's going on. Awesome. Great parting words. Great talking to you. Thanks for being on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Paul. Good to see you.
Till next time, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the Mission Matters podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.